Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather and today we're going to talk about all 13 books that I read in May. That is a pretty big number for me. If y'all don't know, I'm a teacher, and so during the school year, I typically average about 6 to 8 books a month. But Lexi over at Books with Lexi asked me to be a co-host for her yearly readathon called Escape the Readathon, and I just really bought into it. I wanted to do well by my team, I wanted to do well by my co-host, which was Mel from Melanor Reads, and I really wanted to lead the podcasters to victory. And while we did not win, we did secure a really nice second place, which I'm still considering a victory considering how hard we worked and how much our team just really vibed together. We had no drama, we just were full of fun conversations in our chat, and not only that, we had memes. So if you're here from Escape the Readathon and you want to see some familiar faces featured in some really silly memes that were not made by me, I'll give credit at the end, stick around. I've put together a little bit of a slideshow, but for right now, I do want to talk about the 13 books that I read. There might be some looking down at my laptop to make sure that I'm giving you correct statistics because this was a lot to keep track of, but I'm very excited to talk about this. I had a really good reading month. I read over 4,000 pages. I read books that varied between less than 300 pages. I read some books that were 500 plus pages. I read a lot of digital books, a lot of audiobooks. My stats were just kind of all over the place, but the thing that I'm really excited about was I had a 4.25 average rating, which blew my mind. So let's just jump into the books without further ado. I'm going to go in order to the best of my ability in the order that I finished these. There might be some that are a little bit mixed up, but nonetheless, let's talk books. The first book that I read in May is probably one of my favorite books I'm going to read this year, which is A Fire Endless by Rebecca Ross. This is the second book in the Elements of Cadence series. The first one is A River Enchanted, and we are following a cast of characters on an island that's set up very similar to Scottish clans. And in this book, we're following Jack and Adara, and we're also following Sidra and Torin. The politics of this island, it is kind of split right down the middle between two major clans, and they don't get along. There were some politic shifts in the first book that kind of put characters in different locations, and I just love the way Rebecca Ross writes. Her sense of place and setting and world building is just so far above most of the romantasy that I read. I really struggle considering whether this is romantasy or fantasy, but I do think that I'm counting it as romantasy on my genre blanket just because the romantic elements are so present at the forefront. I love Jack and Adara. They're kind of the young lovers of this series, but the couple that I really like and just really latched onto is Sidra and Torin. They are an established married couple starting at the beginning of book 1, but the struggles that they follow, and especially the path and the trajectory of Torin in this book, was just earth-shattering. Our characters are faced with a lot of obstacles that we're not really expecting, because at the end of book 1, you're like, where else could book 2 go? And Rebecca Ross did it flawlessly. I gave this book 5 stars, and it was a great way to kick the month of May off. The next book I read was We Used to Live Here by Marcus Kluwer. This is a horror book about this couple that have just bought and moved into this house. They're planning on renovating it when a family stops by and they're like, hey, we used to live in this house. Do you mind if we come in and look around? The main character of the book is home alone. Her partner is elsewhere during the day. And she's like, I don't really feel comfortable with this, but yeah, come on in. And then the family does not leave. And that sounds like a really basic premise, but there is so much more to this story than just that. That is just the initial setup. We are playing with potential alternate realities and dimensions and a lot of things about like the Mandela effect, and it really did blow my mind, especially when you start diving into this book on the internet. I also thought the character development was just really well done, and I actually dreamed about this horror book, which says a lot. I ended up giving this a 4 stars. There were parts of it that just felt a little bit slow and a little bit above my head, so I couldn't give it a perfect rating, but this one was a lot of fun. I think that if you have the physical book and the audiobook immersion reading, this one would probably be the best way to go. I just did the audio and I had a great time, but I do kind of wish I had the physical book for some of those mixed media elements, specifically the Morse code elements. If you've read this book, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was a really fun time, and it is a horror book I will continue to recommend because it was just kind of mind-bendy. Next up, I read a very short horror short story called Toothworms. And Toothworms is by Laura Gislason. I think I'm saying that name correctly. When I say that this is a short story, this book was 8 pages long. I was on sprints with Lexi and Jesse and me, and somehow we got talking about bugs, and Lexi was like, "Bugs, I have a perfect book for y'all to read, and I will let you count it for your teams if you read it." And so I got brave and I read this book, and the title tells you everything you need to know. This is a book about toothworms, and I can never eat spaghetti without thinking about it again. I really don't have that much to say about the 8 pages I read, other than it did exactly what it set out to do. I did not want to rate this book. I didn't rate it on Storygraph, but Fable forced me to rate it. I gave it a 3 stars because, I mean, like, it was well written and it did what it was supposed to. Did I enjoy it? Not really, but I read it. So podcasters, I really did love y'all last month. I really did love y'all. I read another horror short story after this. I was really trying to get the podcasters out of a game that we were playing, and so I was looking for any short story that was over 50 pages long. So I read a couple different stories from the Creature Features collection on Audible, which is a whole bunch of short stories written by different horror authors. And the one that I started with was The Pram by Joe Hill. This is about a married couple who has been struggling with pregnancy loss, and they move into this new house where there is this pram, this baby carriage, and the husband starts pushing it into town. The people in the town are really, really weird. They have this religion surrounding trees, and things got real weird and real culty by the end of this short story. I did enjoy it, especially the writing. Joe Hill is actually the first horror author I ever read from, and I ended up giving this one a 3.75. The next book I read was Emily Henry's Great Big Beautiful Life, and when I tell you I was scared to go into this book, I was legitimately scared to go into this book because not many people had been giving it very good ratings. I had seen a lot of 2.5s, I'd seen a lot of 3s, and that really hurt my heart as an Emily Henry lover. And so when I went into this book, I was like, oh no, is this going to be the first Emily Henry that really disappoints me? Funny Story kind of let me down a little bit, but I digress. This book is following 2 main characters. I forgot their names because it's been so long since I read it. Alice and Hayden. We're following Alice and Hayden, and they have both been invited to interview this aging socialite who is now living out of the spotlight. She doesn't want anybody to know who she is. She doesn't want anybody to know where she lives, but she does want to leave her legacy in written form. So both of these authors are interviewing Margaret, that's the socialite, to get her backstory, but they've signed NDAs to where they can't talk about the interviews with anybody else. And so they both know that they're competing to write this book, but they can't talk about it with each other. And of course, they end up falling for each other in the process. There are a lot of hidden secrets in this book that are revealed as Margaret does tell her story. And I really liked the slow pace of it. I liked how fast the 2 characters fell in love in this book. I think a lot of people might not like that. It does feel very insta love, but I think it happened in a very natural way. I think that her characters felt like brand new characters in this book. And I think that's hard to do as a romance author, to keep your characters feeling new and fresh and not following on tropes and personality traits that you've given characters in the past. So I gave this a 4.25. I really enjoyed it. I'm in the minority. After that, I read another horror short story called It Waits in the Woods, and I really, really, really enjoyed this book. We are following a set of sisters. One sister likes to make movies and the other sister likes to be in the movies. And one day they are filming out in the woods when the sister who is in the movies goes missing. Now in the woods here, there is a legend about a bridge that defies logic. It doesn't really make sense. Some people say the bridge goes up into the sky and that it is guarded by this very weird creature, troll-like being, and his name is Upso. And the sister goes missing, and then years later, when the other sister is an adult, she's like, I'm gonna go into the woods and figure out what actually happened to my sister. And it gets spooky scary. I really, really, really enjoyed the storytelling here. I really enjoyed, again, the sense of setting. That has been a theme that's recurred quite a bit lately, is if an author can make me believe where we are, I'm probably going to like the book, and Josh Mallerman did that very, very well. I also think the audiobook is the way to go with this one, because when we do get a particular voice in this book, it took me by surprise and it legitimately made me fear for my life for a second. So I gave this one a 4 star. Next up, we had one of my most anticipated books of the month, if not the year, and that was Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry. I've been a Devney Perry fan for about 2 years now. I read her Eden series and really enjoyed it. I knew that if she could do romantic suspense, she could probably do romantasy because a lot of the same elements play into both genres. But this book is following a princess. Her name is Odessa, and she has been raised to kind of be the spare. She's not really that important. She's not going to be married off to royalty. That is the job that is going to her older sister May. So she's just kind of content to just live in the palace and be her own person. But there is this treaty called the Shield of Sparrows where one of the neighboring kingdoms, when they have a son that comes of age, will marry a daughter that comes of age. And this just helps keep the peace between the kingdoms. So when this prince from this foreign country arrives, he's like, never mind, I don't want that princess. I want that one, meaning Odessa. And so she is swept away onto this adventure. It's very much a travel story for about the first half of the book, where she is being like, okay, I wasn't being raised to marry a prince, and now I have to learn politics. I have to learn this other country, and I also have to infiltrate and act as a spy for my father because he doesn't trust this country. There's also these monsters and a monster hunter, and the monsters reminded me of Pokemon. You know how Pokemon are all kind of based on real animals? Well, the monsters in here are also all based on real animals. They just have kind of supernatural elements to them. Like you could have a tiger, but the tiger's kind of got these like quills and spikes. And there's a really cute little tiger in the book. I loved him so much. Anyway, we have so many tropes that I just fall all over in this book. We have got arranged marriages. We've got so many training scenes. I just didn't give this one a 5-star because I felt like I was so ready for the travel to be done after like a third of the book, and then it went on for a little bit longer, and I was like, I just want to feel established in one place. But the reveals and the twists that we got in this book, some of them I expected and some of them came out of left field, and it makes me want the sequel so bad right now. She is writing it. I follow her on Instagram and she is writing it. I gave Shield of Sparrows a 4.5 star. Next up, I read an underrated book. And when I say that, I mean nobody else on the internet had rated this before I read it. And that is the short story called Rehab by Kenna Kay. This is a dystopian book following, let me see what her name is. Is it Juliet? Yeah. We're following a young girl named Juliet who has just been broken up with, and she is grieving. And this book does such a good job of showing the physical ramifications of what a broken heart can do to a person. But in this society, you are able to go to a place called Rehab that can cure you of your grief. It will replace your memories of the person that you're grieving with different memories to kind of help your brain cope with what has happened. And then you can go to something called therapy, which infuses you with the love that your body thinks that you need. It's a really interesting look at what would life be like if we really could cure grief, and would it be worth it? I enjoyed this book. I thought it was very, very well written. I think that this author has a lot of promise, and she did send me this book, so thank you so much, Kenna, for sending this to me, and I'm really, really glad I got to read it. I gave this one a 4-star. I also read my first nonfiction book of the year, which was for my teacher book club, and it was called Me Talk Pretty One Day by David Sedaris. I'm not going to talk too much about this one because it's nonfiction. It's a whole bunch of essays about his life, but I thought that it was so funny. I've actually seen David Sedaris at a book event in Jackson, Mississippi, and he reads his book the same way that he talks during his live events, and that is with so much humor and heart, and I really enjoyed this. We looked at a lot of learning language as well as learning speech. The book opens with an essay on what it was like to be in speech therapy as a young gay boy in school, and that theme, that concept kind of travels throughout the whole book as he moves to France and he's trying to learn the French language. There are anecdotes about his family, about his father and his sister, as well as some more like heavy-hitting essays as well. I really enjoyed this, and I think that when we get together as teachers, we're going to have a lot to discuss about this book. I'm really, really glad that I read it, and I'm glad it was my first nonfiction of the year. Next up, we had one of my favorites, and even though it is not the highest rated book of the month, it's probably the book I had the most fun with, and that is Silver Elite by Dani Francis. What else can I say about this book that hasn't been said already? We are, again, in a dystopian society, and there are certain people that have modifications to them, such as our main character, Ren, but they don't really want the government to know that they exist. The government does not like these modified people, and so they have to stay in hiding or kind of trade their services over to the government to be used as servants or as weapons, and Dani did not write Ren to want to just conform to the government. So think about like a Top Gun military type school where you actually are like the best in the class, but you got to keep yourself undercover. You got to lay low. You got to not bring too much attention to yourself, especially because you have these psychic abilities, and then throw in a dash of romance. I ate it up. It was one of the most fun books I have read all year, and I know that it's got its critiques and people have been criticizing it. I had fun from beginning to end. Was it perfect? No. It was a 4-star book for me, but like I said, I do think that this was the most fun I had reading. And I do have a copy and I don't know where I put it, so go me. I read another romantasy this month that I just ate up, and that was Blood and Steel by Helen Schurer. I have been putting this one off for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why, because once I got invested in it, I had the time of my life reading it. We are following Althea, who has been cursed to die by the time she's 27, and she has really, really big dreams for herself and things that she would like to accomplish in the last 3 years of her life. This is a world where women are not allowed to bear arms. They're not allowed to learn to sword fight, but she says, to heck with that. If I've only got 3 years left to live, I want to do what I want to do, and I want to be a warrior for my country, Thesmar. There are also these people, and I am forgetting some of the names. I don't have this as a physical book, so I can't look up the name, but there are like the most elite militia that are sworn to protect the kingdom, and there's 3 of them, Wilder Hawthorne being one of them. When a situation arises where Althea actually saves the life of the king, she petitions herself to be allowed to train in swordsmanship and shieldsmanship, and he, to kind of the chagrin of his kingdom, agrees to let her train. So this book is a lot of training scenes, but it's also a lot of tension between Althea and Wilder, and I don't always picture characters fully when I'm reading a book. I'm like, okay, I have like the generic image in my head of like Prince Eric from The Little Mermaid, and then like whatever color hair the main character who's a female has, and I just like picture that. I don't know, I'm pretty basic. But for whatever reason, I could picture Wilder Hawthorne to a T. And when I say I like what my brain did with that man, I like what my brain did with that man. I think that the setup for this book for the rest of the series was immaculate, and I'm really, really excited to continue. I gave it a 4-star for the audiobook experience and not necessarily what the book did. The audio narrator made the characters sound younger than they were, and also when she was trying to do voices for some of the male characters, I felt like they were coming off a little bit cartoonish, and that took me out of the story far more than I would have liked, and it kind of took me a while to reacclimate myself to who was who and matching what I thought that their voices should sound like with the narrators' voices, but it wasn't a big enough distraction to make me want to switch to the Kindle. So I really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to continue in the Legends of Thesmar. One of the last books I read, and the only thriller I read this month, was Do What Godmother Says by L.S. Stratton, and this was a really fun book for like the first 75%. We're following 2 different timelines. One is a timeline of the past where we are following a young Black painter from Harlem who is struggling a little bit, and so she is taken under the mentorship of this person called Godmother, and she funds her life, she funds her art, but the catch is that all of the art belongs to her. So what's her name? I don't remember the artist's name. It's not Shanice, that's the present timeline. Oh, Essie. So Essie does not actually have ownership of her artwork. Godmother has ownership of it. Then we're following present day, and we're following a young Black woman in DC whose name is Shanice, and her grandmother is clearing out her house and is like, hey, remember that painting I have in my bedroom? I want you to have that now. Turns out the painting was painted by Essie, and this sets Shanice off on a trajectory that she wasn't expecting, because all of a sudden art dealers are contacting her wanting to pay her like millions of dollars for this painting, and she's like, I don't get it. I like the painting, but like, what's the big deal about Essie? And so she starts investigating Essie's past as well as Godmother, and she's learning really, really dark things. This book plays a little bit with the occult in the past timeline, and then with like stalker things in the present timeline. I thought the end got a little bit convoluted and hard to believe. There was a setting change that, like, for whatever reason did not make sense to me, but I still enjoyed it, and I would read more by L.S. Stratton because she does a good job of setting atmosphere and making you trust people that you shouldn't trust, and I gave it a 3.75. I'm sorry if there was a lighting shift or camera shift For this last clip, my phone died and then it ran out of storage. So we're doing the best that we can over here. But I have one more book to talk about, and that is Say You'll Remember Me by Abby Jimenez. This was my Patreon book club book pick last month, and I'm so glad it was. I feel like we had a really, really meaningful discussion on this book. Before I even talk about it, this was 5 stars. Abby Jimenez writes romance in a way that lets you know that it's not a romance. It is a book about people, and the way that the story is told is through the romance. But the people here are the most important thing. I also think the way that she writes about family is so realistic. I love that she can write about toxic parental figures where the goal is not reconciliation with parental figures, and I think that one of the characters in here had to deal with that in such a brutal fashion, and I appreciated that as somebody that has gone through not the same thing that this character went through, but has gone through similar things in their life. But what is this book even about? We are following Xavier and Samantha, and this book opens up with a meet cute where Samantha is bringing this kitten in that she has rescued, and she's like, this kitten needs help. And Xavier is a veterinarian, and he's like, I'm really sorry, but this cat has this disease that's really expensive to care for, and your best course of action is probably going to be to put the cat down so that it doesn't suffer. And Samantha's like, no, I'm not dealing with that. So she starts a GoFundMe. She raises money. The vet actually contributes to the GoFundMe, and the cat gets the care it needs, which that all happens in like chapter 1, but I feel like it was really important to say the cat is okay. Anyway, we're following them, and Xavier ends up asking Samantha on a date, and they have the most perfect first date ever. Like, imagine what you would like to feel like at the end of your first date. These two had that. But then the next day, Samantha's like, yeah, by the way, I'm about to not live here anymore. I have to go move in with my family because my mom has dementia and I'm going to be on her care team. And so she goes all the way across the country and has to leave Xavier behind. The way that Xavier pines for Samantha is so top tier. Y'all know I prefer a cinnamon roll golden retriever male main character, and that was Xavier. He loved Samantha so much. And seeing them deal with this long distance, with Samantha being a little bit more hesitant to jump headfirst into a relationship, while also dealing with bonkers family dynamics because her mom has dementia. All of the siblings are back home to take care of their mother. The siblings are all completely different people. Their father is going through his own situations, which so many questions and discussion points regarding her father as well. While Xavier can't leave because he owns his vet practice in California, and he's like, I can't just say goodbye to everything I worked for. And seeing them navigate their relationship as well as their real life things, I couldn't have asked for a better book. This book also plays on really big themes, like if I don't have my memories, who am I? Like, am I even a person? How do I make the most of the time that I have left with somebody? How do I make the most of the time with somebody who is not physically in my presence? She could write the phone book. She could write a cookbook. She could do anything and I would read it. Did you know she writes all of her first drafts on her phone, by the way? She's crazy. I love her. I love her. It is a dream of mine to meet her and to meet Frederick Bachman because I think those two authors have impacted me the most in this world. And I just want to say thank you, and I want to give this book a hug. There are things about this book that have been bothering some people. The male main character is compared to Rhysand on multiple occasions, and some people don't like the pop culture references in their books. TikTok, Instagram, all of that is referred to. I don't care. I had a really good time. 5 out of 5, 6 out of 5, 7 out of 5. It was a really good book, one of my favorites of the year. If you are done watching and you're not staying for the slideshow, why don't you leave me a Ferris wheel emoji, because there is a Ferris wheel on the cover of Say You'll Remember Me, and that will just let me know that you were here and having fun and you didn't necessarily have anything to say, but you wanted to leave me some love. And if you are here from Escape the Readathon and you want the slideshow, cue the music.